Ryan from Rochester. I figured out how to describe Ezra and liberalism in general. What he's saying is a reflection of Orthodox capitalist radical neutrality, where you set aside all ethics and morality in the name of taking more power, aka making more money. Don't put a sign in the window of your business that says no racist, but also don't put a sign that says trans welcome. Don't take any moral positions in order to be easily commodified for selling the public your bullshit. It's hilarious that Ta-Nehisi gives to a wide perspective for Ezra while you guys are too effing granular. He wants people to have blinders on and just look what he wants. Exactly. All right, 2 more of these and then I'm gonna Sam, the Twitch collective is feeling slighted by the lack of poggers earlier, and we now demand not only a poggers, but a ooh-ah. A what? Ooh-ah? Do you know what that is?
Ooh-woo.
Ooh-woo?
I'm not sure what it is, but I've seen it before.
To make up for it. Poggers and ooh-woo. I don't know. Brian's looking like somebody just...
What?
Sea sucker.
Maybe.
Since when did MR censor the broadcast?
I just thought sea sucker sounded funny.
Josh from Houston. Houston, want to ask you to promote the GoFundMe for the Texas A&M professor Melissa McCool, who was fired for her lit course that had LGBTQ material. Have to remember, it's not just TV comedians that are being attacked. Folks, check that out. All right, I'm going to restart the computer. In the meantime, let's all those IMs can't stand.
I have some still.
Okay. All right. Well, let's play this. Ta-Nehisi Coates and Ezra Klein were on the Ezra Klein show. Now, look, one of the conversations I tried to have with Ezra Klein when he came on was. And if you've read the Abundance book, this is what's amazing to me. All the people who said, like, did you really read the book? I did. It was very broad. There was a section about housing, but then half the book, or at least a third of the book, was also about government grants and completely elides like the whole process, other than it was an anti-tax movement that made the government cheap, for lack of a better term, with government grants, because you had conservative, I don't care if they were Democrats or Republicans, complaining like, why are we spending $1 million on the spotted owl's bird poop, studies? That's what happened. It wasn't equivalent to local governments or even the federal government putting restrictions on building in San Francisco or California. I mean, and I wanted to talk about the general sort of broader concept of who gets to speak in these decisions. And according to Ezra, it's gotten too broad, too democratic, because you've allowed outside groups to interfere with government capacity. And those outside groups, incidentally, are not billionaires or wealthy people. They are organized groups like environmentalists or unions or presumably black people who want to have minority set-asides, or presumably women who want to have, women businesses get contracts. Here is Ta-Nehisi Coates and Ezra Klein.
And yeah, this is about, at this point, they're speaking about how Ezra has suggested recently that Democrats should run anti-choice Democrats in states that are harder to win. Now, he had started at like pink states when he first made this argument, and there was such backlash that then he started talking about What about Arkansas?
Because the initial states he mentions had voted on abortion post the Roe flipping, and they had supported the abortion rights.
In fact, abortion rights overperform the Democratic Party consistently on ballot referendums and also in the evidence that we have about the midterms in 2022 versus Harris and Trump, where we saw that overperformance was largely due to the backlash from Roe v. Wade and less about the Democratic Party, which has an approval rating that's in the shitter right now. So I just want to preface this by saying that Ezra's whole conceit here is counterfactual. And he begins trying to explain how he feels or what his idea is to Ta-Nehisi Coates.
There was a strategic discipline about finding it.
So I just if you will take this very gentle pushback.
Yeah, please.
I think
you're here for it.
I haven't seen exactly what people are saying, online in terms of this, but I do think what immediately strikes me is if you take, I know you would just, it's not, the example necessarily that you would hold out, about reproductive rights, but I think the problem with musing about that is abandoning it is a very real possibility for people who don't have the option necessarily to fly to another state or do X, Y, and Z. So I suspect when they hear somebody of your status, even if it's not the example you mean, putting it out in the air, they feel, and it's not just that you're putting it out in the air, it's putting it out in the air and actually I don't necessarily even mean that one.
No, but
if you're going to say that, I think you really gotta.
I'll stand behind it.
You gotta put the data behind it. I think that's really, really important.
I will say, and I think this is actually the nub of it, right? I'm glad we're sort of here. Mm. I am saying the thing it sounds like I am saying. Mm-hmm. To be very, very clear.
Right.
I think in a place like Nebraska, you should try to run some pro-life Democrats. I wish people.
Can you pause it for a second? So Dan Osborne will come up later in the conversation, right? And he, actually, I'm sorry. Keep going. But didn't Missouri, by the way, that could be an example of a state. Didn't Missouri just vote to protect abortion rights?
Here's the broader problem, is the sequencing is wrong.
Yeah.
The issue isn't we can run some, economic moderate and all they need to do is be pro-life like the Republican. The issue is we need to have a populist working class candidate. And if they need to, this is the way, and I'm saying this is how you would genuinely approach this if he was even being anything other than disingenuous about it. We need to have a working class candidate who needs to be forgiven and given latitude on the margins, because this is going to be a marginal seat for Democrats, which we need for this person to vote for, hopefully not Chuck Schumer, but just for the time being, Chuck Schumer to be the Senate Majority Leader. So this person who has a strong working class politics and could create a new coalition may need latitude on certain social issues. Abortion would be a very bad one, just as a strategic or tactical measure, because you're never going to, anybody who votes on that issue is never going to vote for the Democrat. Never, ever, ever.
Yeah.
That's not the nature of that particular issue. If you're talking about guns, if you're talking about immigration, if you're talking about, religious values, if you're talking about even in the context of church stuff or whatever it is, there may be more latitude where that will make that candidate less alienating to people. But abortion is a completely different thing. We have seen over and over and over again that the anti-abortion forces are almost definitionally binary and extremist. There is no middle ground. There is no sort of softening of people who vote on that, they do not like hedge. It's not like, it's one thing to say like, well, I think, maybe abortion on demand until, 15 minutes after birth. You shouldn't be saying that.
But the people that might be inclined on the margins to vote for a candidate that is a Democrat or say like an independent like Dan Osborne in a red state would be hooked by the baseline foundation of a pro-working class anti-billionaire politics first, which Ezra fundamentally takes off the table in his arguments.
Yes, he starts with, let's trade off these things. But all
why?
you're doing is you're just taking a Republican.
But you can see why this is an attractive argument to a class of wealthy liberal, and it's been done before over and over again.
Over and over again.
It was just done with trans rights in the last election. I mean, Kamala Harris basically stopped talking about it. It was done with immigration in the last election. How many times did Kamala Harris say, I'm going to and Biden, we can throw in there too, because he's a part of this. I'm going to prosecute transnational criminal organizations at the border over and over again. You had Democrats all across the country running anti-immigration ads. How many people are we going to throw under the bus before the elite liberals like Ezra Klein start talking about taxing billionaires? Because for the rest of us, we feel the implications of fascism. And that was part of what Coates was trying to get across to him as somebody who is a black man in America. But this is him basically saying, red state women, we are willing to throw you under the bus.
Totally.
Because
well, it's not
we
just
are not. I am trying to push forward a repackaged dog shit perspective that has dominated a Democratic politics my entire lifetime and has lost the Democrats over and over again because there is elite capture here.
And we should say, there's no doubt in my mind that Ezra would say, oh, yes, I think we should tax billionaires. But all of the other things to inhibit the ability for billionaires to exist, he thinks is a distraction. Good.
Expressive or strategic, instead of saying that an expressive or strategic question in politics was betraying or abandoning the people we wish to protect, I wish what we said was we lost power in a way that allowed Donald Trump to drive the Supreme Court to a 6-3 Republican majority. And that majority overturned Roe v. Wade. Right. It overturned Roe v. Wade and actually abandoned all these people. Right. Actually fucked them over. Right?
Right.
It is part of, I think, when I say that like the work of politics has become diminished, it is part of how that happened, that talking about this creates this sort of counter argument. Well, even to discuss it is to abandon. In 08, as you and I both
just
know,
keep this up, because what's fascinating, I want people to pay attention to this. No, to keep him up, because I want to keep going here. But people have to understand, he is completely avoiding what's happening. And you can look at the Ta-Nehisi Coates' face and saying, get to it. He's talking around it. Everybody accepts the premise that we lost the power. Everybody knows about abortion going away. You need to connect. The reason why Donald Trump is in power is because of Democrats' pro-choice position. And there's nothing to support that at all. Nothing.
No
and
evidence.
so Ta-Nehisi Coates is waiting for him to say that. Go, keep going.
Obama ran as a public opponent of gay marriage.
Right.
He ran opposed to it at a time when not only, I won't speak for you, was I not opposed to it, but most of us did not. Yeah. Most of us did not think he was opposed to it.
Right.
Like at his heart, we did not think he was opposed to it.
Right.
But he was playing politics.
Right.
That playing of politics allowed him to name Supreme Court justices, and that led to the decision that created a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. And I am saying that that kind of playing politics is needed.
I can give you an example from the other side, by the way, too.
Yeah, go for it.
Here you go.
Brother, you know what my position was during the election about Palestine, about Gaza. Kamala Harris was running to be the first black woman to be president of the United States. You cannot imagine how animated black folks were. And some would argue the base of the Democratic Party, black women You know, we're going to, see this thing. She was not taking a position that I thought was particularly moral. I had to talk in front of Black audiences about that. You know what I mean? And I had to do the other thing, which was go before Arab American audiences here, Palestinian American audiences here, and say, look, I'm with you. You can be mad at me. You probably will be mad at me. I get it. But for me, politics is the lesser of two evils. We've been fighting this battle for a long time. We've never had the luxury of electing people that represented the best of us. And this is why I'm voting for her. This is a really, really serious thing. And when you hear these Palestinian Americans, and when you hear these Muslim Americans, and when you hear these Arab Americans upset about this, you can't just yell at them. You have to take them seriously. These were hard, very, very difficult conversations. But when I made those conversations, look, man, I had to be buttoned up about it. I just think you take very, very seriously the need to convince people outside of the tent right now, right? About like we have to convince them to come in. I guess what I want from you is I want you to take as seriously people who are in the tent and who are vulnerable and afraid. And if you have to convince them of something that's extremely, extremely uncomfortable, or tell them that you're taking a position that is extremely uncomfortable, I just think you owe them a little more. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
man.
That's fine. I'll take it. But I want to put this on you for a minute.
Okay,
right?
okay. So that critique, he just completely aligns. I'll take it, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. But it is quite clear that making absolutely no political gesture to people who were enraged or upset or uncomfortable about the genocide, even the slightest political gesture, was a massive, perhaps election fatal mistake by Kamala Harris. I can assure you that her softening on abortion rights would have not gained her one single vote. There is absolutely zero data to suggest that she's going to get one single vote from that. It is quite clear that they knew Democrats were moving away from Israel during that election. Prior to it, actually, there was plenty of data. They explicitly ignored data. They told their canvassers, do not report on what people are saying about Gaza anymore. We're not even calculating that stuff. So if you're going to talk about politics first, put aside every other question, principles, values, safety of individuals, et cetera, et cetera. To not bring that up as a first order problem when you're assessing that election. But also, you're completely ignoring how Biden got into office, and in 2018, abortion's just the worst of, aside from the moral implications, and it's not equivalent to gay marriage because gay marriage was moving forward. Abortion rights are going backwards. It is not equivalent.
Can
it's
you
just
put that
not.
up? The chart I sent, because I also think, first of all, Ezra relies a lot on Obama as his model for a president. That would not be my model. He's the best president of my lifetime, but that does not mean that he was a transformational president. And in part, his cowardice on this issue was a problem. Now, Ezra would look at this chart and would say, okay, where did how did public opinion change so dramatically? I would argue that it changed because the president of the United States, first Biden came out as VP, and then Obama came out in favor of it and caused that chart to shoot dramatically up about how marriages should be valid and recognized by law, et cetera. This is Gallup. Because that's Obama using the bully pulpit to advocate for common sense human rights for people in this country. When you look at politics from a perspective of political cowardice, then you let the public opinion lead you in a certain direction, and work backwards from there. And that was the whole Biden theory in many ways, although, of course, not on the issue of Israel. We can't touch that, even though it would be overwhelmingly popular for us to change course there. This is about weak leadership and leading from behind. And Donald Trump has changed indelibly the structure and nature of our politics by having a message. It's one that's insane. It's one that's rooted in xenophobia, racism, and fascism, all of that. But he repeated it over and over again and used his power and used the bully pulpit to affect public conversation and opinion. And what is the and on his signature issue, immigration, and what is the Democratic response to that? Which is what Ezra's advocating for on a variety of other issues. Well, let's see the framing. So you have somebody who has changed the framing forever, and your response is, let's accept that. That's why people hate Democrats, because they can't get behind a message, a unifying one that is in contrast to the fascistic one of Donald Trump. And it's not that hard to do. It's being portrayed as very difficult, and some mathematical equation of which people you can throw under the bus, and how can you manipulate the public by abandoning certain issues. It's not that hard. It's just there's money in between us and the common sense.
His is a total straw man, because first off, I can't, like, I'm trying to think of the example of what he is railing against, that the Democrats have like cut loose potential candidates in these states that he's talking about because they're anti-abortion. First off, I'm not even sure if that's the case. A. But B, the gay marriage analogy is just a poor one. It's just a poor analogy, because because Obama's specific notion would have been, at that time, I know this, I actually sat in a conversation, when he was a primary candidate, where he's saying, like, we would not go when we're getting civil rights, we would not first, attack anti-miscegenation laws. Okay. You're talking about a trajectory on how you get to a certain place. It is a completely different. He had not given up on marriage equality at all.
Right.
He had not said we shouldn't get there. He was just saying the best right now is not the time. Okay. And he may have been right. It may have not been something that he needed to do in that moment that would help him get elected to take that position, and it wouldn't have necessarily pushed that position forward. But I'm sorry, abortion rights is a fundamentally different issue, because it was an individual right that was taken away after 50 years. It has far broader support at this moment than marriage equality did. It's just not the proper analogy for someone who is being supposedly so specific about a recipe to win politics, period. And he's pretending, like, he keeps going back and forth. It's fascinating, because when I tried to talk politics with him on this show, he immediately went down into this very fucking granular policy positions about housing in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then when he goes broad for politics, he's sort of like, well, let's not talk about any of that.
I was talking a little bit about this with my sister yesterday. I just want to give her a little credit. She was, saying how in Kamala Harris's book, she mentioned that thing about Buttigieg and not, wanting to thinking America was ready for a gay VP. And, we're not fans of Buttigieg or whatever, but it was an insane admission from Harris, because it's just another window into how they view their role in public service, which is it's one of pandering. It looks like pandering. It smells like pandering. And she was a victim of pandering and was also thinking about it in the same way in her selection process. And people can smell that at this point. Why we talk about a working class politics and why Ezra is approaching it from the exact opposite direction is that it's the most broad-based foundation that you can create to bring in a bunch of other different coalitions into your already existing base. And I would have added to what Coates was saying about how Ezra's argument abandons the people in the base to a degree. I mean, there are many people in the so-called base. The Democrats should expand who the base is, because they've narrowed it over the years from what the Obama coalition was, which was a multiracial, broad-based coalition, to wealthy suburbanites. They have so significantly narrowed their coalition that they have not created an environment for them to appeal to those other groups. And how you do that is you create an underlying structure of class-based politics, especially in the era that we're living through of untold income and wealth inequality, where we're at Gilded Age levels and people are suffering. So everything he says feels to me designed to avoid that conversation, and it's essentially a suicide pact for the rest of us if the Democrats choose to follow this.
It's good to see Coates pushing back.
Can we read the comments, please? Can we before we move on?
Should I look at your tweet or
My tweet? No, just scroll down. This is Ezra's own. This is there was Ezra's own comment section on the Ezra Klein show. Was silence not an option? That was what was asked of Ezra by Coates about the Charlie Kirk op-ed. I find that Ezra Klein is doing a lot of dancing around rather than admitting to his approach to that article. Blah, blah, blah. Keep going. Wonderful, as usual, to hear from Coates' clarity and passion. This discussion lays bare the differences between privileged existence versus lived reality of people of color.
Find it terrifying that Ezra Klein says we should not look too deeply at the historical context when viewing present-day events.
I really don't think Ezra is aware of how out of touch he is. No one on the left that I know agrees with him on almost anything, and he has such a condescending air about him that is not helping at all.
Yeah, well, are you a venture capitalist?
This is crazy.
This is his own channel.
I'm surprised Klein can't see the fallacy he's committing here. Sure, you don't have to dump all over Kirk immediately after his death. The jump to that to I must lie about him doing politics the right way is wild.
I had a tweet with screenshots, but I didn't even want to show that because it could look like I was being selective. No, that's what it looks like.
Sam, do you remember who Bart Stupak was?
Bart Stupak.
Rep. Bart Stupak, Michigan Democrat.
Yes.
He was sort of the pro-life.
Oh, the Stupak Amendment.
The pro-life Democrat that sort of got in the works of Obamacare. He lost. Eventually, or he decided not to run for office. The guy that he anointed to take his place was also another pro-abortion or anti-choice Democrat. Lost to a Republican. So it's not like it's even like pro-life.
Well, that's the thing. Is that like he's trying to sort of say, I'm the one who is not being caught up in emotion. Yeah. I am looking at this as cold, hard political facts. But the truth is, no, you're not. It's almost like borderline bizarre. There's just simply you're trying to make some type of data argument, and there's no data to support that specifically in terms of abortion. Like I say, you could make the argument about immigration, but I would argue, and I would say, as a secondary matter, the reason why you can make that argument about immigration is because the Democratic Party has no immigration stance. And there is the baseline immigration situation is so dismal that to attempt to, as a single senator, fight against it when there's no opportunity for you to fight for anything proactive, and there's no sort of broader narrative, if you will, for lack of a better term, in which for you to sort of rely on, I can understand that. The Second Amendment, we're not going anywhere on the Second Amendment anyway. There are political calculations that make sense. And then there are ones that don't.
Right.
And if you're going to make this statement, it's not enough to say, well, I'm being political and you're just being, you're thinking with your heart. Huh. No. We get that. Everybody who's responding to that gets that. It's a political argument. Justify that issue, selling it off, selling people under the bus, because don't imply that it doesn't have implications in other areas. Of course it does. It is probably the reason why, in many respects, there was not an urgency to put abortion rights into to statutory effect and just simply rely on the Supreme Court was probably in part as a sop to the anti-abortion positions of people. But if anything, and again, Hillary Clinton wanted to do that in 2004.
About to say, yeah.
If anything, public opinion is way past that. The equivalent today to what he's talking about would be to go to Nebraska and try and run on against gay marriage, right? Like that's what he's talking about.
Yeah,
and
it's just like this idea that people can't smell that. I mean, when people talk about a smug coastal liberal, my God, like he speaks about the millions and millions of people in our society that are engaged in our politics as if they are sheep, or as if they can just be given a little treat and then go away like an animal or something like that. No, that people can sense authenticity. There's things called political movements and energy, and it's your job to create that as a political party. And there was one comment that was being a little, way too generous, I saw, to Klein, where it said, I think Coates is coming at it from a historical perspective and Klein is coming at it from a political one. But to your point, Sam, he's coming at it from a anti-political one because his whole argument rests on data that is actually the inverse of what he says. And when you're both completely ignoring history and white supremacy, basically, or the movements of anti-feminism, as we have Pete Hegseth talking about how we need to make the troops more male, because the more dominant sex, the better sex, the one that should subjugate the other sex. To have this guy come out there and say, basically, women in red states, you're screwed over, and we should run out candidates that will say that to you and pander to you, and you won't know the difference, right? I mean, come on. This is a really deeply rotten problem within the consultant class of the Democratic Party, and I'm not sure if there's a political pundit out there that represents that more than Ezra Klein right now.
Okay, I want to move on, but it is almost as if he is just generating a topic, because it is just like it is almost as if it is just a branding exercise for him. Now, it's one that I think misfired greatly, but the Kirk thing, because no one who is steeped in politics would say the issue to moderate on at this time is abortion rights. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's just like taken for granted the Democrat is going to be for abortion rights. It's one thing to say like, oh, I believe we should limit it to the third trimester or, whatever it is. But to be against abortion rights, and as if this is like, it's just so sort of almost off topic in the conversation about political moderation. It feels like it's almost like done just to stake out a position that it's almost like the reactions he wants certain segments of the population of the political world to react against him, to define himself in a way that makes him more palatable to another portion of the political world, if that makes sense. Like sometimes you are defined by your enemies.
Yeah.
And I think in his mind, I think he thought the abortion thing would just like, oh, all the pink hair ladies will come out against me, and that is going to project I have the right enemies, as it were. And that's going to make me more palatable to a different sort of segment that I'm looking to appease.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but like an issue that could make sense is like gun rights, right? Like gun control.
That's what you're saying.
But But he doesn't. Why does he not offer that up? Is my question. And it's because gun control is extremely popular among wealthy liberals. It's like, I mean, and as it should be. We should have massive gun control reform. But if you're actually being targeted in the way that he's talking about, you would. They criticize Bernie Sanders for his kind of more his position on it coming from a more rural state in the past about this. That is something that's more tactical. What he's saying is just, I mean, it's nonsensical, and I do think he's backtracking.
All right,
but yeah, we're
we got
on
10
this.
minutes.
Oh, sorry.
646-257-3920. We'll take 2 calls. 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920.
First of all, how dare you?
Again, also, you know, like, I don't even want to talk about it, but if you were looking for tactical things to do, coming out against AIPAC, saying I'm not going to take AIPAC money would, like, talk
easy.
about low-hanging fruit.
Ezra hasn't come out with in favor of an arms embargo to Israel, so.
I mean, Ezra talked with Ta-Nehisi Coates about how Netanyahu is different than Hamas.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.